Welcome to Seven Trumpets Prepper, and guys, welcome to another edition of the Hard Truth Show. And guys, I'm wearing glasses today. I know this is totally breaking the normal routine on here, but to see everybody tonight with the headache that I've had all day on vision, I'm going to wear my glasses tonight so I can actually see everything. Real quickly, before we get going, for anybody that has not followed the channel, you can also make sure and go over on Odyssey and subscribe, guys, because we're almost in the double digits of content that YouTube has removed this year, and I get a notification almost every other week now, especially talking about things that went on between 2019 and 2023. If y'all know what I'm talking about there, that content's definitely been removed because of talking about that. Also, guys, if you haven't checked out A World's Last Chance calendar app for a scriptural calendar, make sure to check that out. It's free on Android and Apple platform. And we stream on here now at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And also just a real quick reminder for anybody that hasn't caught some of the lives lately, just a heads up on that. There's been some really good ones that we talked about. Brother Akeen and Brother Joel joined me on there to talk about the great controversy between the kingdom of heaven and Lucifer's kingdom and our place in it all. Pastor Taiwo visited with us recently, and Brother Akeen again to talk about the firmament and the set apart scriptures, how that they declared the set apart days of worship. And I had Brother Josh on recently with me last stream to talk about, are we in Satan's little season? That we're going to definitely do a second part on that. I know that was well received. And guys, tonight we're going to have Brother Jeremiah on and Jake, and we are going to be smashing the truth about MK Ultra and some really deep dive on this. And guys, if you have not checked them out, make sure to check them out at Skiba News Nation. And shout out to the guys before I bring them on. They're already at, I think, over 50K on subscribers over there. That is awesome. It took me 12 years to get to 100K, and they've done halfway there already in 2 years. So shout out to them, brothers. They are killing it over there. So make sure link is in the video description below for that. And guys, real quickly before I bring them on, I want to tell you, it's a quick story today, is that I was watching this video, and this lady that did hospice was telling a story about a man that was a very wicked man and not a believer. And he was dying, and the family gathered around and was there with him at like the home health center where that they were saying goodbye to him. And she said that, the man's pretty much incapacitated. And this was like the last gasps of breath. And I've experienced this with my dad passing this year, except he went out very peaceful and, was ready to go. And it was just, you just never want to say goodbye to your family, but it is what it is. That time comes. We all have that day appointed. But it was nothing like what she described. My experience with my dad passing was just, a very peaceful exit from this world. This man's send-off was not that way. He went from completely incapacitated, eyes closed, to like bored stiff, pushed back in his bed, eyes wide open, and like almost like fully functional again, and was like screaming, "No, you're not taking me with you." And then the lights started flickering in the room overhead, and it was a really just wild experience. The woman explained working in hospice. And, as an electrician, when, voltage fluctuations, things like that, the lights will flicker. People's talked about it when demonic entities and things like that's around. They've seen where like EMF spikes and etc. And we could get knee deep into this conversation. But the reason I share these things is that the mind, even on death's door, we're going to talk about how that the mind is going to be messed with stuff, MK Ultra, different things like that, how people can be affected. Well, one thing about it is that right there just proves to you also at death's door that the spiritual realm is a serious thing. And the closer we get to the second coming of Messiah, we're going to see, I believe, a lot more of the veil being lifted. It's going to get wild out here. And I'm telling you, that woman's story made my hair stand up, because I know that she wasn't fabricating none of that. And she even took some serious steps back from that as well whenever that was going on. All right, so with that said, guys, I'm going to bring Brother Jeremiah and Brother Jake into the house. Man, it's a pleasure to have you in the house.
Man, I'm happy to be here.
Hey, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Think the world of you guys. Hey, I want to tell you, shout out to y'all. Y'all killing it in YouTube land, smashing it with them subscriber numbers, man. I looked at that. I was like, look at that. Them guys already halfway to 100K in 2 years, guys. That's awesome.
Well, that's why we got to stick together as truth seekers. I mean, I think that we all together can do something amazing. You know what I mean?
For real. Absolutely.
Yeah. Over the years, I've noticed it's actually quite the small world of people who actually have a love for the truth. And so you end up bumping shoulders with so many like-minded people with kind of different communities, but we all have a shared interest, and that's the truth. And so I think that's what we appreciate about what you do and what we hope to do with our audience over at Skiba News Nation.
Gotcha. Absolutely, guys. Well, guys, for right before you get going, for everybody that's watching tonight, if you haven't checked them out, links in the video description below. I'm about to turn the reins over to them, and I'm going to join you guys out here watching tonight as they present all this information and facts. And guys, if you just need to screen share something, just let me know. I'll pop it on the screen for you later too if you need it.
Cool.
All right. Well, the floor is yours. I'm excited to listen.
Well, let's start with deception. I mean, you said the word deception. Most people think that they could never be deceived, right? You know, I mean, most people would think, you know, what I've learned in school is always the truth. But later in life, I kind of found out that somebody who I had always kind of felt weird about, I learned that I was not the only one that felt this way about this person. And that person is this old lady right here. Hopefully it doesn't stay. Hold on, camera. Okay, now it's gonna stay. So this old lady right here, her name's Helen Keller. And most of you guys know who this is or know of her. She was deaf and blind from birth, right? That's what we all know. And she could communicate with people. I think this was the biggest lie and deception told on mankind. It was the first one in human history to see how much they could get away with the amount of fraud that was going on. Did you know that she flew an airplane for real? I'm not kidding.
So she was deaf and blind, but flew an aviation.
Yep. She flew an airplane. She also had a British accent. Don't know a lot of people. They know that. She could only communicate with one other person that would speak for her. Her name was Anne Sullivan, and they would do this palm tickling thing. And once Anne Sullivan died, she was just SOL. I mean, she could not communicate. So we're meant to believe that this woman, who's the most empowering woman, who is all for women's rights and all for, you know, it even said, this is what blew my mind. I was watching a documentary about her, and they said that she had one of the biggest, like she was one of the forefronts of racial, what's the word? Racial equality. Like Jake knows the word that I'm trying to say.
Oh, no, I'm spacing on it.
Racial advocate, like for you know, to have the same stuff. And this is coming from somebody who can't see and can't hear. So imagine your whole life you can't see, you can't hear. How do you communicate? You know, and somebody said, well, why do you think that's a conspiracy? And I said, well, because if they can get away with that, what else can't they get away with? Can they get away with making the moon landing? Which, I mean, I'm sure we all kind of think so. Can they get away with, you know, framing murder? Probably, yeah. Can they get away with telling us that the Earth is a globe and it really isn't? I mean, these are just my thoughts. What about you, Jake?
Absolutely. I think every situation can be used as a metaphor for the greater deception as a whole. And I think with Jeremiah brings up the Helen Keller conspiracy, right? And you guys might be scratching your head like, what are these guys talking about? What does that have to do with anything today? Why would I care? And I think one of the interesting things on that topic is throughout American kind of culture today, we have the propagation of victim mentality. And so our heroes nationally have been set up to be these people that have overcome disabilities, that have overcome tribulation of some sort, whether it's persecution for race, gender, whatever. It's all about everybody has to play this even playing ground. And I think what's so interesting is that it is inbred into our psychology to jump on victim mentality. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? Because when people put a lot of their time into digesting what we've learned in school, like these figures that have overcome victimhood are now your heroes, it encourages people to then jump on that mentality and present themselves in our culture to everyone else as a victim. So no wonder we're in such a politically correct mess as the world burns down around us, and everybody here with at least this Western indoctrination is pushing and clawing at self-victimhood so that they can somehow become the hero of the story. And so it's like a psychology that's kind of just in our culture today. And I think that's what the Helen Keller story reveals, is just how our heroes throughout American history have been set up to kind of turn us as a generation of people serving the man into victims. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you brought that up about, victim mentalities, because she was the biggest supporter of eugenics. Did you know that? And she was the biggest hypocrite then. She did not like disabled people. What? I mean, she's supposed to be like the top dog, right? She's supposed to be like, I wrote 12 books, and like giving speeches and all that stuff. And I remember the first time it came to me, my beautiful wife at the time was my girlfriend, and we were on a road trip to like Waco or something. And I was like, I don't know what thought came into my mind, but I was like, you ever thought that Helen Keller was a fraud? And she was like, what? And I was like, no, have you ever like thought that? I've always thought that when I was a kid. It just didn't make any sense to me. Like somebody who can't see and can't hear, and they can communicate and do all these great, amazing things for the man. Basically, it's just a mouthpiece for whoever is inside of her ear. You know what I mean? Don't know if she was really deaf and blind. Don't know if she was just an actress, but I tend to think she was an actress because she had a British accent. But like I said, if they can lie about something as small as Helen Keller was an American hero, then why wouldn't they lie about everything else? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to see the humor in it, everybody. And I know as we're going through these conversations, you have to understand no one can truly know the truth of reality from an unbiased perspective. We've inherited lies and things wherein there's no profit. And so it's a telephone game of information from person to person. And so we're sifting through all of these tales and textbook stories that we've inherited. And I think that's what's so interesting about today's internet culture, transitioning from how our parents were indoctrinated to how we're indoctrinated. We are now the generation facing the actual giants. When you think of the ability to control somebody's mind, now it is our generation that is now transferred from in the past they would use, of course, what was taught in the school classroom, but now you have the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in every one of our pockets. So I think that's something to consider, and something that really is the foundation for a lot of these conspiracies that we could talk about tonight. So, Jeremiah is starting off with a kind of a left field, Helen Keller.
I had to drop that big bomb, that autistic bomb. Just, I don't know. Once it starts going, I just can't stop,
Hey,
but we can get into some.
Yeah, you always got to keep somebody around that'll bring up the craziest conspiracy anybody's heard of, because eventually they'll be right.
Well, you're talking about like just like with the fakeness of so many things. Is what was the guys that went to the moon, that one moon landing? Neil Armstrong. What was the other two guys?
Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin. Yeah.
So
Buzz Aldrin, they said there was that one guy that hit him up like after he had done a talk or an interview or whatever, and he was like, just put your hand on the Bible and just swear that you did it. And he just like completely flipped out and lost his mind. Oh, did he punch him, Jake? Was that the
Get
guy
out
that
of
is so-
here!
Okay.
How dare you? Ah.
Yeah. And I'm like, if I did something that amazing, like I feel like Gru with the Minions movie. I'm like, I'm going to steal the moon. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you do something that amazing, I'm going to be like, absolutely, I did it. Right here, I attest to it. But I mean, like, I don't know why that was such, I mean, of course, I know why it's such a big deal because they were lying. But like that just, that calling this stuff on the carpet, like, I think there's just a small fraction of society that actually even stops and critically thinks anymore. And it's like, did this stuff really happen? And if it did, where's the receipts? Like, I just think that the school system in the past 3 decades has done a phenomenal job at indoctrinating people to be asleep at the wheel.
I will say not all teachers are bad. Like my wife is a fabulous teacher, public school teacher, but it all depends on, what we see. Like we see the ones on TikTok, and the ones that we see on TikTok are really woke, and the ones like her don't ever get any credit. So shout out to teachers like her, and the ones that are the other way. Yeah, you're right about that.
I mean, it's the same concept of not all doctors are bad.
Exactly.
It's in today's world, there's a degree of how much you've bent over to the system, bowing, so to speak, to Babylon. And the way that it controls people is through our debts, kind of on a personal level. It controls us through cultural pressure. It controls us through distractions. There's a couple different areas that we can look into to figure out how this system is built up against us as people. And the reason that is because it's the whole pyramid concept, which is everything is a siphon up to the top, the few controlling the many. And so that's something that plays out in our politics. It's something that plays out corporately. Just think of this concept as the way a corporation is structured. You have the president, the board, the people at the top that are kind of controlling and playing the chess pieces, so to speak. And then you apply that visualization to world powers at the UN or at the WHO. And you have these small council of men with enormous power and incredible influence and resources of their whole countries at their fingertips and disposals. These people then move chess pieces across the board. And as they play the game, that's where we see these rippling decisions and choices come out. And that then confronts us, the everyday person. And just depending on where you're at, determines what you experience in the rippling effects of world affairs. And I know this is like really simple, but when we break down conspiracies, everybody gets cognitive dissonance at the term conspiracy or conspiracy theory. And when you really think about it, what does conspiracy mean? It means a group of people working together to accomplish something, perhaps against or at the hurt of the whole, for the few. And so I don't know. I mean, where do you want to go with it, guys? I mean, tonight we could have a crazy in the weeds show. Let's talk biblical eschatology and conspiracy. We could talk, some of the crazy stuff we've seen with Elon Musk. What do you feel like? What direction do you feel like going? Because we talk about all this kind of stuff, and it's just we like to have fun with it, really.
Yeah, well, the Elon Musk thing, I was telling Jeremiah right before you got in the studio, before we got going, is I definitely want to hit on that at the very tail end tonight. When you guys are completely done, I want to get y'all's thoughts on that one. I want to save that one for the grand finale, because with the whole iRobot thing the other day and everything that's going on, it is getting straight wild out here. So I'm very curious to get y'all's input on that later at the end tonight, but I want to save that one for the tail end for sure.
For sure. Yeah, a lot of people, like if I'll go somewhere and people, like it's like my wife's friends that don't really know me very well, they'll be like, what's your favorite conspiracy? And that's kind of a funny word, but I'm like, Charles Manson. And they're like, what do you mean Charles Manson? And I'm like, well, he was innocent of all of his crimes if you're looking at it from a legal perspective. And what do you think about Charles Manson, if you don't mind me asking? Just what you've heard about him? Like
You asking me or Jake?
Yeah, you.
Oh, I mean, well, guys, I don't have a lot of knowledge base on that one in particular, but I mean, like you were talking about the JFK shooting thing too. Like I always feel like there's three sides to every story. There's your side, their side, and everything in between. So I'm sure that there's a lot more meat on the bone when it comes to that one too.
Well, yeah, most people see him as like a boogeyman and all this, crazy person with a crazy family that told these people to go kill these people. So in my opinion, if the case were to happen today, he would not be convicted, because I mean, if you look at people like Gypsy Rose, I don't know if you're any true crime fans out there, but she's already out of prison and she killed her mother. That's messed up. That is the definition of messed up. There's no evidence that proves that Charles Manson killed anybody. And I even have I found a video of Sharon Tate's mom saying Charles Manson didn't kill my daughter, which is very interesting. But also, I know that Charles Manson may not have done this, may not have done these murders, but he was involved with MK Ultra, and his handler is actually this guy. He's like his name is Dr. Louis Jolyon West, and they called him Dr. MK Ultra. I don't know if you can see that. And Dr. MK Ultra was also this man's handler, Jack Ruby. And all this stuff you can back up. I mean, it's the same guy that worked with Manson, worked with Jack Ruby, and that's a crazy coincidence, if you ask me. I mean, what are the odds that two of the most conspiratorial people, in my opinion, I mean, JFK happened right here in Dallas, so I could go on forever about JFK, but what are the odds? The man that starts the word conspiracy from killing Oswald, this photo right here, one of my favorite photos, this is what started the conspiracy of JFK. So what were they trying to hide? Were they trying to hide something that somebody knew? Somebody knew too much about MK Ultra? And if you look at the Manson thing, they said that Manson, if he did do these things, which, innocent until proven guilty, I'm very behind that fact. But if he did do all these horrible things, or one of the things that he probably did do is he probably gave LSD to his followers, to the people that were in the Manson family. And if that were the case, where would he have got the LSD? From a psychiatrist, maybe? From the guy that, is his handler, from the CIA, and happens to have all this background with other famous figures throughout history that tend to be controlled. I mean, it's just very interesting that LSD was a big part of the case. And another weird thing, and this is kind of just off topic, but this book, Helter Skelter, this was written by the prosecutor. Okay, I don't know how many prosecutors that try try to convict somebody, write it's the #1 best-selling book of all time. So if that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. I mean, there are so many different rabbit holes with that whole Charles Manson, and I believe he didn't kill anybody. He didn't deserve to be in solitary confinement for the rest of his life, but that's my opinion. But I think he had a lot to do with Dr. MK Ultra, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, Alex Jones, I know he got pretty much buried here lately because the insensitivity towards Sandy Hook and things like that. But with that said, after Sandy Hook got destroyed shortly thereafter, all that went down, it started making me pay attention to what people would label crisis actors. And have y'all seen that chick where she's always having a freak out, and she's at every single thing? What was it? It was Sandy Hook, Boston bombing.
She's at 3 of the big ones. 3 of the big ones. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, it's a laundry list, but it's the same chick. And I'm like, these people are one of two things. They are crisis actors, or they're MK Ultra experiments. Because it's like they rewash, reload, and recycle the same people. Because people, I mean, the problem that we have with society nowadays is everybody has a phone in their hand. Mm-hmm. But that's also a good thing, is because there's always eyes watching everywhere when this nonsense goes on, and people's starting to connect the dots. And I just think that, where that for years people, well, these are paid crisis actors or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I really would say go a layer deep. And I think these people are like CIA operatives and that they're under, MK Ultra's umbrella. I mean, now I may be going too far down the rabbit hole on that, but
I think you're 100% right. I mean, if it started in the 60s, think about like to now, how big has it gotten? How big has MK Ultra gotten? And I think it's like I did a whole show on Coco Melon. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like a show for children to watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it keeps your attention span for 3 seconds, and the way that it clips is so like they are controlling the kid's mind. I mean, there's no way around that. Like the kid has no chance other than to just watch the TV. They've taken the TV show away from the kid, and the kid will cry for hours and pretend like he's watching it and he's watching a black screen. And they have withdrawals just like you have heroin withdrawals. So if you can do all this stuff in the 60s, imagine where we are now. Imagine what they're doing to all of us every day on a mass scale.
Man, somebody said TikTok is evil. Boy, TikTok is just straight wild anymore. The stuff that is just on TikTok is, it's definitely crazy.
Oh yeah, they flagged our TikTok for like something like so stupid. It was like it wasn't even medical misinformation. It was just like a lie. It was like sensitive content, and I was like, I thought TikTok was like supposed to be like the old YouTube, like cool still, but it's not very cool. You got to self-censor on there just as much as you do on YouTube.
Yeah. And what's really frustrating is like there's those ads where it's like if you worked in the coal mine and you have black lung, call B&B Associates, will take care of you at the law office kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Well, I've seen the ones now where I'm not going to talk about what happened between 2019 2023, but just FYI for people out there, there was like this law thing that it was like, call B&B if you've suffered myocarditis, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but, they pulling content over talking about said items. I'm just like, man, it's getting to the point where I know that the media is controlled by, a slim bunch of entities, but it's getting to the point where you can't control this forever. I think what's so embarrassing is they're trying so hard to control things that it's making people actually look at it and be like, man, there's something to this. Like if I was
it's backfiring.
Yeah, if I was wicked, I'm telling you, like if I was like extremely wicked and I was like, say, the president of the United States, and they said so had, Bob assassinated, I'd tell them, you know what, don't block them from running it, air it and put it on a constant loop. I wouldn't try to, because if you do, it's going to make people validity in it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's a lot of people, the validity and things so hard to put stuff down.
Yeah, I think the mainstream media is MK Ultra today. I mean, I really believe that because of the way that they control everything. And like you said, it backfired in like one of the biggest ways is because we see through the lies. I mean, people like us, but imagine how many people buy those lies. It's like, those are the ones that we're going to wake up, whether we want to or not. Like, we're going to have to. Or,
well, you all have read 1984 or watched the movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there is this meme somebody created recently, and it had like an apartment complex, and the windows were open in a bunch of the apartments in that complex, and they had the same news media outlet playing on multiple TV screens in multiple apartments. And they were, and it was just like, this is where we're at 1984. And it's like these people all were sitting, listening to the same stuff being regurgitated from the news media outlets. And somebody also took it a step further, and they showed where all these media outlets said the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Across all the outlets. And they were like, somebody just handed them out a script. And I'm like, man, this is, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, the most recent one I really enjoy is the Taylor Swift is not a conspiracy. That
not a
phrase
psyop.
is not a psyop. I'm sorry, you were right. And
I'll
they're
never
all
forget it now.
saying it, and it's so in sync and so perfect because they say the word psyop all in unison. I just love how people can compile today and show the hypocrisy. But really what it does reveal is that compartmentalization is truly what we're dealing with. I mean, we have people that are serving a larger system than they comprehend. And so when people do their job and give into the system, they might not be kind of making an internal decision to enact evil and oppress mankind. But when you have enough people give their thinking man over to the system, that's when you have 2021, protocols rolling out on people and people just following along because, hey, it's what my boss told me to do. And guess what? We have pretty much a Nuremberg level, kind of medical affront on mankind. And so whenever we talk about these topics, that's why we like to get into some of the more fringe conspiracies, because there's an important foundation. People have to understand that if you've been lied to once, you absolutely can be lied to again. And when we look at organizations like NASA, governments, we see false flags being proven and proven. I mean, just look at the the documents that were released on JFK recently. You guys are bringing up. I mean, the government straight out comes out and goes like, "Yeah, the CIA did it. They absolutely, And so, as the truth is vindicating as time goes on, man, who knows what is being sealed up about the past few years? You know what I'm saying? But I'm at the point of looking at how society's going, thinking they don't expect us to ever get to the point where we'll find out the truth of these topics. I mean, and so whenever we look at like the space deception, it's the men in white lab coats that you were set up from a small age to worship and obey, right? What does worship mean? It means you take what somebody is saying and you take it as scripture, for lack of a better term, right? So in school, we're taught that these men in white lab coats are immensely trustable, kind of beyond reproach. They're the people that give us the information that we trust. And that's not how science used to be. Of course, science used to be doing what was observable, repeatable, testable. And when we see kind of the perversion of science, I think it started back when theoretical physics and stuff became a very popular realm of science, where we moved away from practical engineering and the Nikola Tesla types. And then we moved into these kind of ethereal chalkboard scientists. And there's so many deceptions behind even the modern science that we have today. Einstein, this guy propped up as an amazing hero. And when you find out really, kind of his positions on things and where he got those, it makes you question the foundation of science as we've inherited it. And it's this foundation which is used to kind of justify NASA and space programs and modern medicine, which Jeremiah has done some amazing segments covering the medical deception and how the doctors and the colleges that elect these doctors or give them doctorates, it's a rigged game. And so there's all these rigged games. So back to my whole point, NASA, right? These men in white lab coats who are set up as these idols to look up to. Subconsciously, if we give into these space program monkeys pushing a monkey spaceball religion, then we're all the more likely to subconsciously bow to the men in white lab coats telling us to put something into our bodies later on. And so it's a building layer to the way deception works. And I think, they like to show their hand in movies and kind of predictive programming and stuff. And so we like to cover that a lot in our content, kind of breaking down how things kind of foreshadow what might be coming. And speaking of foreshadowing, I don't know if you guys have noticed some of the crazy things happening recently, such as the disaster in North Carolina, the comet, that's the first comet in the sky appearing, around the biblical feasts, the escalation of tensions in the Middle East with Israel. Oh man, it's so many things all happening at once. And it's just, now that we set a foundation of how the deception works, now we can talk about, all right, what are they doing and how are they doing it now?
Yep.
Well, real quickly, guys, just to touch on one thing you were saying about NASA, like Picard, whenever he, shared his scientific findings and he talked about it, being such a flat thing would look like it turned up at the end, at the edge, is, it's interesting to me that once the NASA program was created, for the longest time, I've always wondered, I'm like, they're just wanting to block mankind from getting to the edge to see the dome. But I'm like, really, it goes a layer deep on that too, is that they're wanting to make sure and setting up NASA was the first foundational pillar of a control grid, because once you box people into a spinning ball, they have been massively separated from the Most High mentally. And then you can start, separating people to the point where now, like they wiped out Tampa the other day, they're wanting 15-minute cities. Like the lithium mine got approved up here in North Carolina, just over the hilltop from me. And, they're now they're going to move forward with that because there's nobody left hardly alive to oppose them. So, there is a lot of there's a lot of deception going on. And I see people were threatening weather meteorologists because they were trying to downplay and say that, that this wasn't weather warfare. I don't know about y'all, but I have never seen hurricanes and stuff do the things that they've done.
That's crazy you say that, because right when the second hurricane was coming, the first thought in my head was, oh, they're controlling this, and oh, it's almost election time, and oh, they're hitting 2 red states. They're hitting big areas. Like, everything you're saying makes sense, and then people are pulling out these patents, and I don't know if that's my headphones or what.
Let me make sure that ain't my audio. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a ton of patents for this weather warfare. And the one that got me is the state of Tennessee just recently banned chemtrails in the sky.
Good.
And it just blows my mind that people will argue and say that's not a thing, but there will be a plane flying and no trail left behind. And there will be another plane right beside it, spraying the sky. And I was at the pumpkin patch with my wife and the girls the other day, getting them some little pumpkins for the fall harvest. And you could see the grids in the sky where that they were moving the clouds like there was literally waves in the sky after they sprayed it. And my sunglasses are got that, what is that coating, where you can like see better in the water too. You know what I'm talking about? It's
you can put Rain-X on it. Rain-X or the fisherman stuff.
It's I forget, they call it a certain coating. Man, it eludes me at the moment. But anyway, I looked, and that's like a much darker coating. And when I looked up, I could see the chemtrails even better with that coating on my glasses. I was like, this is crazy. I'm just like, people are so, like, it's to the point where they showed a crayon coloring from schoolhouses in like the 1980s, like when I was a kid. There was a little house drawn, the family and the car and some clouds in the sky. Now today they showed the color paintings kids drew in the sky, and there was literally the grids in the sky. They painted the chemtrails in the sky, like they thought that was normal clouds. I'm like,
yep.
that is the level of indoctrination we're at this point,
Well, and I think that's waking a lot of people up too. Like my father-in-law, who's never been into conspiracies. He's always watched our show, but he's never like got into it as much as I've seen him get into it lately, where every day he'll send me another chemtrail video. Like, did you know that this was happening? And it's like, man, I'm so glad that people like his generation is finally saying that the chemtrails are real. That they've been around forever. And it's crazy that it's taken this long to stop it or to have a law passed, you know.
Oh, somebody shared in the comments. It was polarized. That was the word I was searching for. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. It's a different animal, and I don't want to get into the AI thing yet, but I find it, very interesting timing that how many devices AI is being integrated with. Because right now we're getting to a point where so many people's waking up that the only way I know how to combat things, and you need AI desperately for that deep fake mechanism.
Yeah. Deep fakes always scared me because I always told Jake when we first started, I said deep fakes are going to be more powerful than DNA evidence because they can put you anywhere. They could legit put you anywhere, and they just put your face on a body. I mean, I've done it with me, Jake, and our producer Opa, who's also my grandfather and pretty awesome. But we've like deep faked each other, but to show how easy it is for people that like I have no idea how to deep fake. I just pull up an app on my phone and I can do it, and just show how easy it is. And people are like, oh, if it's that easy, I mean, what else could they be doing with this this technology? Somebody in the chat said turn off the background music. Is that you, Jake?
Yeah, if you guys want, I can show you what noise you're hearing is. I'm here at a festival of tabernacles, and we could even do a special behind the scenes of the awesome party I'm at. But if I don't want to be too distracting, so I don't know if it's too loud. I can, I don't know.
It ain't that loud right now. I wouldn't worry about it, brother.
Okay.
If it gets real loud, I'll one of us will let you know. I mean, I don't hardly hear anything now.
It sounded cool because I heard a shofar right at the end. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think it's really interesting what technology is making possible so quickly. We have AI has allowed the numbers to be crunched, so to speak, on so many things that took thousands of man hours to crack the code of mankind. When you get to debunking the way mankind's psychology works, identification, we are such a unique creature of Elohim, right? I mean, it's amazing that they can use AI to identify people, and just the ability to crunch the numbers is, I think, what makes AI so dangerous. And it allows the police state to become what we see in books like 1984.
Yeah. I think it was one of the missing components that he really didn't have at the time. I think if Orwell could have got a glimpse just for one day of the world we live in right now, that book would have been, I hate to say it, but I would almost label it almost prophetic at that point, because I mean, the dude nailed it for the time that he lived in. For now, viewing forward, that dude absolutely crushed it. I mean, he was off by about 20 years, about 2 decades, but I mean, he was right on top of it, the nail in the coffin for that.
Oh yeah. Jake was talking about something yesterday about the year 1984 and something happening that year, and it's just kind of ironic that it was 1984. You remember what that was?
Oh yeah. Everybody will see it in our show coming out this Friday. So, hey, on that same topic of 1984, I think some other authors, Hubert Armstrong, I can't remember exactly what his name is, the guy who wrote Dune, right, which was used as kind of a base material for George Lucas to create Star Wars. They reflect this idea that computers and artificial intelligence is going to be dangerous, because if you look at the universes of the Dune universe, I know it's popular because the new movies that have come out recently, in that world, in the story, AI computers are all but banned. You'll notice that all of the technology that is advanced is like analog. And in the same way, Star Wars. Why is it that in the Star Destroyer are they booping on these like black and white keyboard box things, right? Why do they look so dumbed down? Well, I think it's all to do with this subconscious fear and programming that we were being warned that artificial intelligence and supercomputers are going to be a very powerful instrument in the hands of evil, and we have it embedded in our media, just like the things that we've all grown up with.
Now,
Yeah.
should we be just as good as they are at, lying to us? We got to be just as good at telling the truth or as they are at telling lies. That's what my dad would always say. So should we battle them that way, or I don't really know. AI kind of scares me, but at the same time, I get its appeal, but it's kind of getting out of control.
I think it's irreparable at this point. I mean, like we were, me and the guys were discussing this, I don't know how many times here lately. And I was going down the list of things that like absolutely, do not want to deal with in the last days. And it's like, if you could delete one thing off the earth right now, what would that be? And it'd be like AI. I'm like, I'll go right through the 7 trumpets of Revelation, y'all willing. I will, go to jail, y'all willing, if I need to, like lose my head if I need to for the kingdom. Like I have all these I will do's for the kingdom, but I do not want to have to be trying to figure out how to make an EMP blaster to shoot, drone
drone warfare.
I mean, like I watched a guy the other day took a Sega shotgun. I think it was in over there, and they were fighting near the Russian front the other day, and he got off his ATV because one was chasing him down, and he got off and blasted it with a shotgun. I'm like, this is like stuff out of the Terminator movies. And I'm like, I mean, like we're at a point where I cannot even believe that I'm watching the science fiction movies that I've seen play out. Like it freaks me out. Like it disturbs me so bad. Like I never thought in 2009 when I really started walking it out in the truth, and I'm getting prepared. I'm like, man, the stars are going to fall out. That a third of the stars are going to fall out of heaven. A third of the ships are going to be destroyed in the sea. You're going to see at the 5th trumpet, people seeking death and can't find it. So you're looking like the Walking Dead probably for 5 months. I mean, like all this stuff that I've been preparing for. I never thought I would ever have to worry about robots walking down the street and having to clap and stack bodies with that. Like that was completely off the menu for me. And here we are.
Let's get off the deep end. Why don't we? I mean, we're talking things that are supposed to happen in the end times, right? We're seeing things that could happen right now. Well, there's some extra things that are hinted at in extra biblical texts and apocryphal texts that are also validated in some language in our traditional Bibles. And 2 topics that people don't really know are actually prophesied to happen in the day of the Lord time frame during the Great Tribulation before the millennial reign. There are 2 topics that will catch you totally off guard, right? One is that all these movies we see of Godzilla and enormous creatures coming out of the ocean and, or destroying cities, there's a precedence for that in the biblical texts, and those texts that support the biblical texts with information that's supportive but not necessarily contradictory, but kind of like the legends of the Jews, the apocryphal books. We see hints that Leviathan and Behemoth are going to rise from their hiding places somewhere in the earth, and they're going to appear as a type of judgment, and they're going to actually be slain by the Messiah and his angels and given as a reward to the righteous in the feast of Yah after the tribulation, the day of the Lord. It's a reward for the people that made it to the other side of the Great Tribulation. And it's actually interesting backstory to different things, like as in there used to be allegedly 2 Leviathans, and in the legends of the Jews it talks about how the first Leviathan was slain before the flood of Noah and put into a brine of salt preserved for the feast at the day of the Lord. And so there's these massive creatures, the Leviathan and the Behemoth, that are prophesied in 2nd Baruch, is the text that I'm referring to right now. talking about how they'll come and manifest themselves and be slain, basically, and given as a feast to those who survive. And so what does that tell us information wise? Well, for one, these must be kosher beasts if the Most High decides to give them and feed them as a reward to the righteous in the end times. And so that means Behemoth is likely a split-hoofed, chewing the cud beast, likely a giant bison-looking monstrosity. Who knows what it looks like, man? But you have Job. The book of Job talks about its tail being so huge, and there's some interesting language there that I never noticed before. But just
as long as they're not eating the dogs and they're not eating the cats,
I mean, to me, that's so cool to think about. In the coming days, we could see Godzilla literally come out of the ocean, right? The Leviathan, and what will the world look like when things like that happen? And, it's not only that, things get crazier as you get into the events that roll out in these, days preceding the coming of the Son of Man, right? You have the resurrection of the dead. You have some interesting language again in Baruch and in 4th Ezra about the concept of the dead coming back first, and you have that echoed in the words of the apostles themselves, that first the dead will rise and then us who are alive will be caught up. And so you have this time precedence that alludes to the second trivial conspiratorial eschatology topic, which is the dead come back as a witness to the live before the Messiah returns and everybody, everything happens as, we've understood it in terms of the second coming. And so there's some interesting language that could hint at how the dead show up and present themselves in the estate that they were, entered the grave. And so long story short, zombie apocalypse, right? That Hollywood is warning everybody about with their movies, talking about zombies are going to come back. Well, what they're doing is they're preparing you for the resurrection of the dead that the prophets have talked about for generations and generations. So I know I kind of went on a train there, but those are the two big coming eschatological kind of lesser known topics that I think just blows my mind that those are even possible. I mean, it turns reality in the world into like, oh man, we think we saw something good in the movies. You've been watching Godzilla versus King Kong or whatever. Just wait till you see what really happens, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I remember, I think it was one of the passages I read in Baruch, and that's been probably 2 summers ago while I was at the beach. I was going back through 2nd Baruch, is that I'm thinking you can definitely read that and sit there and think, man, just waiting for the Japanese news media to be like, Gojira, just come out of the water. I mean, there is going to be some wild stuff go on. I mean, it is, it's I mean, like, I just think about, like I said, too, when we talk about the zombies, it's like, the 5th trumpet, whenever, it says people will seek death and cannot find it. I just imagine somebody like taking a 357 to themselves, and for 5 months they're walking the streets because they're not allowed to die. I'm like, this is just straight out of The Walking Dead. And I don't think people's ready for that. The one that really gets me above all this, like if we seen Godzilla walking through LA tomorrow, I'm okay with it. I can deal with it. The AI robot thing, it really, really, really bothers me, but I'm trying to find peace with it. But the one that is really bothering me that I know is coming, and my buddy Josh Keefe just made a documentary about it, I think a couple years ago. I shared it on the live stream the other day, but it's called The Final Card. Is this whole AI or the alien thing. Now that one's really going to bother me, because like they are pushing this hard to lay a foundation. And while we're discussing MK Ultra and things like that tonight too, is, like they are mentally preparing people for an alien invasion thing. And I can literally see, the Son of Man coming in the clouds of glory on like highly technological, flying craft. Who knows what this all is going to look? Who knows what the Golden City is going to look like?
Right.
In the shock factor that's going to hit people. I mean, obviously it's described in scripture, but I'm just saying, like, this shock factor that's going to grip people. And I can just see the nations of the world be like, shoot it out of the sky, shoot them all, like this full freak out mode. Because, you got Reagan standing at the United Nations being like, what if there was a threat outside of our world? I mean, this idea has been planted, this seed has been planted and has been maturing, in the minds of people in the nations for many, many years. And so I just can't even begin to imagine when that comes to be, because I think my mental stress that's on us right now dealing with what we're dealing with, if somebody is not rooted in the word, I can see how they would be deceived to want to attack the return of the Messiah when he comes, because the picture that's being presented in people's minds right now, you know what I'm saying? Like the programming.
Yeah, and they're trying to normalize like all the alien life too, which is very, very weird because nobody seems to care anymore. I mean, that used to be the thing until all those documents came out. It was like, oh, alien this, alien that, but now it's like, okay, yeah, they're aliens. Like, we're just supposed to accept the fact that they're aliens now. Like, what? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like, let's suppress this for as long as we can. And then just one random day, guys, we've been feeding you lies for so long. We just wanted to let you know, Roswell, Area 51, all that. Yeah, it's open.
My
it's
bad.
open
My
season.
bad.
Yeah, we're open season now. You do you. I mean, it's getting wild out here. Well, okay, so I want to drop this one on you about the Tesla thing. So the other day, did you all watch the reveal on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the iRobot movie and like Blade Runner and Terminator, this is like the amalgamation in my mind of like what I seen the other day. And I'm like, okay, so this is inescapable at this point. I'm like, these things are going to be in people's homes. I know where this is headed. The people are going to use these for everything from changing their baby's diaper to washing their dishes to an intimate partner, to machines for war. I mean, you're going to have, war machine out of this, Tony Stark, Iron Man kind of stuff going on too. I mean, like the whole pie chart wheel, you can start hashing it off for what they're going to be used for. And I just could not uncouple from seeing that the other day, knowing this is game on at this point. And the Neuralink, I said all that to lay the baseline for this, is the Neuralink thing will be the next thing on the menu. People want so badly to couple their body to cybernetics and technology, the augmentation, like it's a huge push. And not only that, of course, people's want the biometrics in their hand. And then, while we're speaking at large right now in European Union, I believe it's Lithuania, Greece, and I forget the other one. I think it's Switzerland, that they're working on oh my gosh, I almost said the word to get us canceled. A passport for certain things that's required in your body, and that you can't travel, buy and sell, blah, 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 without them being up to date. And so, there's that part too out there. So, I mean, I just see this mechanism of this machine moving forward to where you got like Whole Foods that, you scan your hand and pay. It's getting wild. And I'm just curious with you guys seeing and knowing the things we all know. What are we looking at here? A couple years, 5 years, 10 years? I mean,
I think we're already there.
They're saying the River Euphrates is going to be dry by 2040, I believe is what that scientific study said the other day. So, I mean, like, we know that the prophetic timeline is getting inching closer too,
Yeah. What people got to understand is that this whole game is controlled by a D&D club of gay wizards, and they gather together, and the way that they roll out these narratives is they have like a bundle of narratives, right? And that bundle of narratives is the Hollywood career of various actors who play in action, sci-fi, hit TV shows, movies that they have people fall in love with, and they represent these hero figures that push a narrative in kind of the movies that they play in. And so what we saw recently with Elon Musk showing pretty much a carbon copy of the iRobot movie, right? Well, who does that bring to mind? Who is the actor in iRobot?
Will Smith.
Yeah,
Will Smith, who recently went through the largest humiliation ritual in the history of TV movie stars, the most meteoric like crash of a star from the heavens, Hollywood, to the ground.
I was going to say P. Diddy, but Will Smith, probably.
Exactly. Will Smith, right? There was a ritual where he slapped Chris Rock and kicked my wife's, this or that. And then you look into who his wife is, this absolute, loose woman who, makes him this emasculated man to just follow and forgive. And the whole attention that all of that brought was a ritual, is kind of what I'm getting at. And so what other movies has Will Smith played in?
Men in Black.
Men in Black. Okay, we have some alien narrative there. Go back, probably around the same time frame, but in the 90s, he was in a very, very popular movie. You guys know what that one was?
What was the zombie movie that he was in New York?
I was going to say Pursuit of Happiness.
That is I Am Legend.
I Am Legend.
Oh, yeah.
That's
okay, so imagine it like this. You have the Eye of Sauron, which is the Illuminati who decide how the world narrative plays out. And they want to focus all of mankind's energy and attention on specific narratives to help them roll out on the world stage. And so by creating these humiliation rituals like what we saw, everybody's attention is then on Will Smith. Everybody's mindset then goes to those movies we all grew up watching, the cool flicks we'd all take our families to at the movies over the years. Well, guess what? As we start to see those things play out on the world stage, another very popular movie he was in is, I was trying to fish it from you guys earlier, it's Independence Day. Exactly. Yeah, Jeremiah beat me to it. So what does Independence Day set us up for? It sets us up for the people that are there waiting for the return of the New Jerusalem will be the take us with you people. Then whoosh, they're the first to get vaporized, or rather that's what they want us to think will happen, right? And you brought up I Am Legend. Did you know that the I Am Legend zombie outbreak happened because of a what? Guys,
I mean, that was the cure. And it created the cause.
Yep, exactly. And so when you ask how long do we have, how is it going to play out, I can at the very least point you towards that narrative and say that's how the Illuminati, powers that be want it to look like. And you can see how they use humiliation rituals, they use actors and movies, and then they follow a script, because in our subconscious as a Western, race of people who are consuming this media, our subconscious mind has been affected by this content that we've consumed, whether we like it or not. And so as things roll out on the world stage, they have meticulously prepared to predict how we will react. And so that's just kind of what I wanted to mention about, you mentioned Elon Musk and the interesting look, how it looks almost just like iRobot. And it's because I think they want everybody's attention on Will Smith movies and how those, crazy blockbusters foretell the fate of mankind as we know it.
Well, if you think about it, the movies are kind of grooming us as a form of MK Ultra. I mean, it kind of goes full circle. I mean, they are trying to brainwash us into seeing these things as normal or accepting them when we first see the movies. And then, now it's really happening. So now we have a guidebook, that's what they want.
Well, the thing that bothers me the worst about this, guys, and I don't think I'm the only one seeing this, is that with the aliens movies, right? Well, they are pushing that, any alien comes is bad, right? Well, obviously, when Messiah comes back, he's coming to rectify things. So it's not bad. It's bad for the New World Order, but not for those that's looking for salvation. Then you have the robot thing. Everybody's watched all the Terminator movies and stuff like this. It's like, dang, I need more 7.62 ammo in my closet. Well, they're making it out like, this is going to be the solution for helping mankind. I'm like, AI is not my friend. Elon Musk's robot factory is not my friend. Like, I don't want these things. And so there's this whole spinning the card deck, making you think that this is good when inherently it's bad. Like, I wouldn't want to be one of the people standing there, celebrating them walking down the street the other day. I would be like, where's a hammer and let's start breaking some circuit boards. Like, that's just, but this preparation over time, it's I don't know the disconnect for people. I don't know if it's the set apart spirit, that is separating the minds of people. But like, for me, when I see these things, my spirit immediately gets churned up. Like, there's a deep feeling of concern and awareness, and like, this is bad. Like, I don't even need my mind to tell me this. Like, my gut is telling me immediately, hey, warning, something's off here. But I see so many people receiving these things and celebrating these things. And I'm like, did you all not watch the content that has been produced in Hollywood for the past 20 years? I'm like, this does not ever end well. And the last thing I'd say to that is AI, anytime left unchecked, has always become incredibly intolerant toward humans, racist, just homophobic. And furthermore, is the grandfather or the guy that they call the grandfather of AI at Google. He has regretted ever helping to develop AI. So when, I've never went out and bolted somebody down off grid and been like, man, I hate that I helped them get off grid and have freedom and free power. I've never done that. But this guy created a product, a self-thinking thing. And then he says, you know what? I'm not about this. That's concerning to me, that's very concerning.
I wish he would tell us what the reasoning behind it was, so we could all be prepared a little bit, but they wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting. I've not read that book, guys, but I have seen that before. Kathy O'Brien. That's another one. Boy, that one right there is definitely down the rabbit hole. But Transformation America, yeah, that's one that I need to get around to reading. But man, because what was the guy that was the Secretary of State at the time? The Bushes was in. What was that guy's name? Because apparently Dick Cheney.
Yeah,
he was
right.
VP.
No, that was let me think.
Colin Powell. I'm just listing off people who I remember.
I want to think it was Dick Cheney. That was the. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was him that she talked about, and I don't want to misquote this, but she was talking about how that, like, she had been, they done the MK Ultra stuff with her and everything, and that she was used and mistreated, and oh my gosh, yeah, somebody said Cheney. Okay, yeah. So, is that right, Jeremiah? Is it Cheney?
I think that's Opa, actually.
Oh, okay.
Our producer. He's all into it right now.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take an L if I'm wrong on this, but I think it's Dick Cheney. And man, they were talking about that. I think it's in her book, because Brother Joel told me about this. Is that in that book it talks about that they were flying out to this hunting lodge, and that I think it was Bush Senior and Dick Cheney was on there, and they took her along to mistreat her and everything, and if people don't understand my code language for mistreatment, I hope they can figure that out on the back end. But anyway, the Dick Cheney tells one of the guys on the airplane, says, open the door. And he opens the door and he says, now jump out. And the guy jumps out and just kills himself. And he was like, this was part of that MK Ultra programming or whatever, I guess. And she was just digressing and breaking these things down. And that was just like one of the instances. And apparently the hunting place that they went out to, apparently they weren't even actually hunting animals. It was hunting people. And like, I mean, it was like some crazy stuff. Like, what is that book about that island, where that people went to, and then the guy hunts them there.
I know what you're talking about. I can't.
Well, anyway, it was kind of
Opal will
like,
put it in the chat.
okay, well, it was kind of like that kind of thing, And anyway, that book apparently is some savage stuff, but I mean, people don't understand how far-reaching, that this goes, but it's deep. I mean, it's all the way up to the sovereigns that are over nations. I mean, they're all. I mean, Scripture talks about power and principalities and high places. I mean, like this is some serious business that's out. We're dealing with at this point. I don't think people understand just how deep it reaches.
Right. Well, it's funny that you say Dick Cheney. I was telling my wife the other day, do you remember him being dead? Like, that's like my new Mandela effect, where I don't know where that falls in, but I could have swore he was dead, but I could be completely wrong. I mean, I've been wrong about the fruit of the loom.
Didn't he shoot somebody in the face, and then like he was on a hunting trip, and he just like
that's why when you said hunting trip, I was like, oh, is this where he killed that dude? And then he also had a heart and like a replacement heart, and that's why he's probably still alive. And the guy like hated Dick Cheney, and he was hit by a car, I think. There's a really good movie with well, I don't want to say it's really good if it's really bad, but Christian Bale, is that his name?
Christian Bale.
Yeah, he plays Dick Cheney, and he like puts on a lot of weight. And the guy that plays Junior Bush, that they just kill it. I mean, they just are those people, but it really shows the like disgustingness of the Bush administration, and it was pretty eye-opening for me.
Yeah, well, we were talking about 1984 earlier, and I don't want to blow the lid off whatever Ian's going to talk about in the future, but what was that thing that you were alluding to, Rex 84? Was one of the things that Ian's were talking about, touching on earlier when we were talking about that year, 1984, and then there was the Rex 84 thing put in place for the future.
That'd be Jake.
Yeah, I think we've covered that in either this week's episode or last week's episode. So definitely, so I mean, just the number 1984 in itself is interesting. But just the association with that year, the topic and the book is hey.
Well, you want to know what's weird is I was born in 1984, or not 1984, 1994. So 10 years later. So just kidding.
Man, well,
it's a bad joke.
The 80s were, looking back now at like the late 80s as I grew up into the 90s, it's just like after like 2000, things have just really, really sped up and progressed. And, like I've seen this, many times whenever like a blizzard will come through or something like that, and the power will go out and the water don't run. And it's just like when I was a kid, like it was a very simplistic life. There wasn't cell phones, computers, all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And, as these past 30, almost 40 years have went by now, the transition of, living where my grandmother's house that I live in now, and they were remodeling, had a rotary phone on the wall downstairs, to watching robots walk down the street the other day. Like that is just unreal. The transitory time that we all have lived in. Like there's elders alive. Like there was a lady that somebody interviewed, I don't know, it's been some years back, that she was alive whenever the history books told that the world was flat. Like, I mean, like we have really been sandwiched into a time where that there is just so much transition. The newer generation of people being born, and I would say, the millennials and, Gen Zers, they have no idea the transformation that's taken place because they just popped on the scene at the very tail end of this,
Yep.
Yeah, well put. I mean, I think we live in the days that prophets long to see, and we have this amazing opportunity. I mean, beyond any generation before us, just the power of the internet and the tools at our fingers' disposals, we can be the most biblically literate of almost any generation. I mean, think about it. Thousands of years ago, you had to go to synagogue to hear the scriptures read. You had to be, just a few hundred years ago, you had to be an expert in multiple languages and have to go to be these big old dusty libraries. Well, guess what? Today, you have the blessing of being able to be the most scripturally literate generation that has almost ever lived, I would say, you know, beyond maybe the patriarchs who actually had that true, you know, pure passed down heritage. And so that's so exciting to be in that day and age where knowledge increases, right? And I think the reason we see the escalation of world events is because as knowledge increases, so does responsibility. And there's almost a paradigm on the spiritual world where the Most High judges us based on what we know. And so if you think about the people that are alive today, our generation has all the good at our fingertips, and you know, we have the ability to be the most righteous, most, you know, learned and pursuing after truth generation, right? But because we have that blessing, we also have the ability to be wicked like Esau and be the most rebellious generation that has ever lived in many, many generations and years. Why is it that the rabbinic perspective on who the most wicked man in all of Scripture actually is not who you would expect? Like, if I were to ask you to right now, of all the Scripture, who do you think the most wicked person was? Just a wild guess.
Man, well, I mean, my top picks of that would be Nimrod. And then I would go after that. I would choose Esau because the spirit of Esau is alive and well in a lot of people today. Man.
Yeah. I mean, you know, just straight to the chase, you know, there's a lot of bad guys, right? Pharaoh had the children killed. You know, you had Herod, you had Nimrod, you had all these people who were really bad guys. And yet the kind of the rabbinic oral tradition is that the most wicked man, despite all of those characters, was Esau. And the reason that is because Esau was a man who was presented with righteousness and then turned his heart away from it. While you have these other kings of the world that were wicked, yes, but that's all they knew. They were raised in it. They were raised in idolatry. But, you know, in our generation today, we can be either, you know, on the side of righteousness and truth, or we can be groomed to be the false prophets of this coming great deception. And the thing that's tricky about false prophets is they don't know they're false prophets. You see a wave of people converting to Christianity recently, and within a week, they're shilling the Hallowed app, pushing people towards the Catholic whore, right? And, you know, I don't mean to use incendiary language because I know there might be people watching this that are Catholic, possibly, you know, people who come from those backgrounds. And I use strong language like that because when you look into the traditions of man, you find that there's a course direction that is not in line with truth, where tradition was elevated and then used to kind of blind mankind. So, I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, you know, that we discussed Esau in here, not to go left field for a minute, but I did something I've never done before, is that I had a conversation recently with one of these people in one of these Hebrew Israelite camps that view the white man as Esau, which I ain't with that doctrine. You know, the white man, most of us is Japhetic tribes, you know, of people far back. And then, you know, you can look at Esau today, Saudi Arabia, you know, you look at the Middle East, most of those people, you know, they're Ishmaelite descendants or Esau descendants, right? And the thing is, as you talk about, it talks about that Esau will be destroyed, you know, is that if you look at most of those countries today, they're like 100% Islamic. They deny Messiah, you know, they don't love the Most High that we know. And so, you know, Messiah's coming, that's not going to end well. Well, one thing I've thought about too is that, you know, if America falls, especially in the near future, the largest world religion here in the very near future is looking like Islam. And not only that, but when America and the dollar and everything else has moved out of the way, and especially the people join BRICS nation, the 10 kings in BRICS right now, if that ends up being the 10 kings at the end, most of those are Islamic. So there is a lot of things on the menu right now that's going on in the background that also has that spirit alive and well in the last days too. And I say that because I believe it's in I don't want to misquote it, but I think it's in Baruch. Also, it talks about that, Esau is the end of the world. So that's an interesting, I got to look that up. I don't want to misquote that, but I'm going to look that up in a minute while we're all talking. But, that's a very, very interesting thing that's going on right now around the world too. And it's just funny you mentioned that, talked about the most wicked man, because, he did have the opportunity to be one of the most righteous men in the history of Scripture, and then he took 2 wives and offended his father, and then the 3rd wife that he took was an Ishmaelite. So I mean, he really took a bunch of L's. I mean, that guy just did not get it right out the gate at all.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You see in those stories the significance of who somebody is to marry. And I think what we have to take from those lessons that the patriarchs were leaving for us is that the people that marry into other cultures and pollute the waters, so to speak, it only takes 1 generation for a people to be completely misdirected off course. And so that's wisdom for today's generation, is the person you marry and the culture you build is so significant and important. And who you let your children marry is even more, significant and important. And I think we talked about this and before. I think last time we discussed and had you on the show, but our judgment is kind of tethered with the community that we find ourselves preparing in. And I was thinking about recently how more and more people are waking up and becoming truthers. You guys see that all over, right? We have people being shaken by all these conspiracies, and they're like, oh, wait, my crazy tinfoil hat wearing cousin wasn't, pulling my leg the whole time. He was onto stuff, right? Well, as you have more people wake up, it's going to become harder and harder to find people that were an early comer to the love of truth. Does that make sense? You're going to have everybody who's on the bandwagon for, alt truther. You're going to have everybody who's woken up, but deep down you're going to have different people that fell for all these ploys but are just kind of going with the flow in whatever the next kind of ploy is on mankind. So it kind of makes me think it's kind of like Gideon's army, how Gideon's army was weeded down from the mass numbers and eventually ended up with just a remnant, a few chosen. And then in the end, they didn't even fight the battle. They were just the ones breaking jars and blowing trumpets. And isn't that how the Most High often seems to work? Is he ends up fighting the battle, but he weeds the number down so that he can get the glory. And I think, you have all these deceptions happening in the world and these tests, and it's because he's testing mankind right now. And in the testing, you have the test comes because we're now responsible for the newfound knowledge we have, right? Like we talked about, right? This is in all of our pockets. We're getting tested because of the responsibility that we now have as a generation of knowledgeable people, and after the test, you have, I think, the true prophets of Yah and the true Jezebel false prophets are going to be kind of raised up. And that's what we're seeing in today's media and in today's world, is that true idolatry doesn't happen until somebody knowingly chooses to worship the idol or the false god or the demon or the alien in rebellion against Yah. You're not truly committing idolatry until you're doing it wittingly, knowingly, right? Because somebody who is raised in it, that's ignorance. There's a difference in the degree of evil there. And I think when people start to behave in a way that's a complete rebellion of all things good, what is good will be called evil, and what is evil will be called good. When people do it with a heart full of rebellion, I think that's when demons get super battery charged, because they're opening these gates in their lives for demons to manifest the curses of Deuteronomy 28. And so as they empower evil spirits through their sin and transgression, then you see the manifestations of demons and supernatural craziness on the earth, and darkness and judgment and all of the evil we see in the book of Revelation that comes onto mankind. It's because the people's love of Yah grows cold, their transgressions heap high to heaven, and they then open the door for the spiritual realm of demons to just wreck everything. And that's what the end times is, and kind of what I think is coming on the world today.
Yeah, well, that scripture thinking about is, it said, because they received not the love of the truth, they were sent strong delusion, and it's like also, where we're supposed to study to show ourselves approved to Yah. It's like, the servant that knew the master's will and didn't do it, to him is many stripes, but he that knew not the master's will is few. And I mean, we are definitely in that paradigm if I've ever seen it. Oh, and real quickly, guys, the scripture I mentioned earlier, it wasn't second Baruch, it was second Esdras. And it said, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And I really feel like we're in that paradigm too. Jeremiah, I'm sharing those links you sent me. I'm just
no worries, man. Just like in the description or something.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna, guys, if you haven't followed over on their channel, like I said, it's in the video below, but I'm gonna put this one in a banner immediately so that this one is up for you guys.
Man, when can we have you back on? I mean, it was a blast last time.
Oh man, I'll come over anytime. Jens, just let me know. I'll be there for you, man. Guys, if you want to go check them out on YouTube, right there's that one, and I'll get the rest of the links in. Definitely. I'm going to email these links that you sent me to myself so I have them for after the show, and I'll put them in the stream as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you let me know whatever time you want me to come over. I've got construction projects going on where I'm going to be out of town for customers, here and there the next couple months. But I've got a lot of weeks that I'm going to be home because I've got to go to Kansas, Texas, Florida.
Hey, when you're in Texas, come say what's up, man, if you're in Dallas.
Okay, let me see. I'm trying to think which way we're going to be passing through on that. The last time I worked in Houston, we went north going back up. And I'm trying to think, is Dallas northwest or is it north, just straight north? Like, do you pass through Dallas leaving Houston to go back up to go to 40?
I'm trying to think. I'm not the best at geography, but it's like Jake might know.
Isn't it over to the east further? So Houston, you're going Louisiana route, but Dallas, you're going north into Arkansas, and then
and then San Antonio and Austin on the other side, I think.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, if me and the guys get done early, though, I'd be thrilled to come up through there and catch up with you guys. Yeah. We really enjoyed the last trip down. I went saltwater fishing for the first time in my life. The last trip we were down, and man, that hurricane had come through, and the water, oh my goodness, it about threw me out of the boat while we were out there saltwater fishing. The water was like, the waves coming in were so bad. But we had done committed to the cause. I'm like, we're going to get this done one way or another. So,
dude, I was watching this one video on YouTube of right when the hurricane hit, these surfers, like just random video on my feed, and they were so surfing. Have you seen that video? And they're like surfing on these big waves, and it's like going over them, and they're like, "Oh no, dude, it's perfect."
Yeah, it's
perfect, bro.
they're like riding the waves to death. I mean, so committed to the
So
cause.
bad.
Oh man, yeah, that's a little beyond my my man card. If like I have to punch the little stamp in the man card for riding surfboard in a hurricane, I don't know if I'll ever get there. Oh man, somebody said if I go Houston up through Huntsville, I can cut over. I guess on I-45. We'll check it out, man. I'll text you when I'm back in the Lone Star State, and I'll definitely give you a heads up before I head out that way.
Sweet, man. I should take you to Daily Plaza where JFK happened. You could film it and live stream it or something. But that's pretty intense if you've never been there.
Yeah, well, I'll shoot you guys some. If Jens will let me know some days Jens are wanting to do a stream or something, I'll make sure I'm free up in the evening time to catch up with Jens again. But I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open in the weeks ahead, because I don't know about y'all. The last thing I'd say on this for pop off here for the night is that I have had this very sinking feeling that right after election, things are going to get just absolutely insane in this country. Like I'm at the point where I don't even care who gets elected at this point. Like let's just say A or B goes in office. Like immediately following election, I feel like there is this whole agenda that's like laying in a classified folder that is just like going to be punch list item, concluding that. I don't know. Do you all have you had like that gut feeling?
Oh yeah. I think if one party doesn't win, I've heard a lot of people say that there will be civil war, and I'm like, let's let's kind of chill out. But I mean, it's very possible. I mean, it's crazy. We've even had guests that are like, let's wait till after the election. Like Trey Smith is going to come on. I don't really know much about Trey Smith, but he was like, yeah, let's do it after the election. And then somebody else said, let's do it after the election. So I'm like, what is happening? Why is everybody wanting to wait till after the election? Is something going to happen?
Yeah, I've got to be in Georgia, Thompson, Georgia, the 6th. And then that next day, I'm getting up, checking on the customer settings on their off-grid, and I'm driving straight home on the 7th, like nonstop that day, past Atlanta and hammer down toward home, because I did not want to be out and about on the night of election. That is a no-go for me.
Quick story. The last election, I worked at Amazon. I mean, this was before my dad was still alive. Good. I was doing music. I worked at Amazon at night, and that night I had my phone, and I literally watched the boop, boop live, and I was like, what just happened? And all my coworkers were like, what just happened? Like we were all freaking out. It was so weird. Weirdest thing I've ever experienced. One of the weirdest. But
yeah, man, it's some wild times. Well, guys, thank the world of yous. It's been great having yous on, and we'll definitely chop it up again. Anytime yous got something on your mind, yous want to jump on here with me, you let me know, because I've always got thoughts going through my head for a live stream. I was going to do this little mini documentary thing, but I was talking to this guy the other day that we were doing a stream together, and I have this thought about doing like a 3-segment documentary, but I'm going to just do a live stream on it instead. It's the AI, aliens, and Esau, the last 3 things before curtain call, because I feel like these are going to be the last 3 big, cards laid on the table before it's game over out here. The whole Esau thing, of course, is the Islamic world, the caliphate, and all that stuff going on, and BRICS. But I don't know. It's definitely some. There's not a day I can't think of something to talk about anymore. There's just so much going on,
Yeah.
So true. Yeah, there it is a lot, and I think it's just like juggling. And it's crazy to think that we have this sense of foreboding, and we're more concerned about what's happening after the election than this coming election in the first place. I mean, it just shows you the state of the world, where the election that could literally be the most, I mean, if elections aren't all rigged, right? Let's just play that card, right? Well, this would be the most important of like history, right? You have an incumbent, president, Trump, Biden swapped out with Harris, but we're not even thinking about it. I mean, we're literally less than a month away from election day, and I'm not even like thinking about the election really. It's crazy to think about. Maybe Is that the intention, that we're so distracted we don't go vote? Was that what the ploy was the whole time? Or is it just
feels so far away?
I know. I mean, wow, just a weird mindset to be in, because I mean, a few years ago, 2016, I'd be obsessed with this, like what's going to happen in a few days, every week, Trump, but now like I really hardly pay attention because there's so much going on.
When you just put out a board game, bro. So I mean, he put out this awesome board game. I just thought I'd share this with you. Maybe you could send him one, because it's so cool. It's like something that you could do with your family. All the power goes out or whenever. I mean, it was fun. We played it the other day. I had a blast.
Nice, very nice. Well, guys, it's been a blast hanging out with you. Anytime you ever need anything or anything I can ever do to help you, just text me, call me, email me or something. And if I don't hit you back right away, I ain't ignoring you. I'm on a job site in the middle of nowhere. I never thought about that when I started an off-grid business, is that when I go off-grid, there is no cell service. And we're running the excavator or something out in the middle of nowhere, putting panels on a roof. I'm like, well, we'll call them when we get back to town. But
same here. If you ever need anything from us or want to come on or whatever, just let us know.
Yeah, man. Well, you can let me know just whatever days you are thinking, and I'll definitely be there for you. And so just shoot me a heads up on what the topic is or whatever you're wanting to cover, man. I'll be there for you, no problem. Guys, for everybody that's watching, as always, until we see you again here, Seven Trumpets Prepper Channel, hope the Most High Yah Baruch you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, show you favor, and give you shalom, my friends, in Yahushua name. Love everybody. Make sure to check out the guys over at Skiba News Nation, and we're out of here.